Welcome back to the Nile Forensic Archive. I am Mr. Yol. Today, we enter the aftermath of the Torit Mutiny, a period of deceptive silence, followed by a catastrophic administrative collapse. This is episode 4, Early Tensions Rise. The archival record of late 1955 reveals a state in shock. The Torit Mutiny had been crushed, but the administrative structure of Sudan was already in a state of terminal friction. The trust that holds a nation together had evaporated. In Khartoum, the government chose silence over reconciliation. Instead of addressing the grievances of the South, the administration focused on consolidation, effectively treating the Equatoria provinces as occupied territory. The focal point of this collapse was the Legislative Assembly. This was meant to be the forum where a unified Sudan was forged. Instead, it became the forensic proof that two nations could not occupy a single seat of power. Southern representatives, many from the Jiang and Nath heartlands, found themselves in a hall where their voices were not just outnumbered, but systematically ignored. The blueprint for unity was being redrawn without them. Remember the 1954 Sudanisation Committee, 800 positions filled by Northerners, only 6 by Southerners. In the Assembly, this disparity wasn't just a statistic, it was the daily reality of administrative erasure. The most critical failure was the Constitution. The safeguards promised at the Juba Conference in 1947 remained ghost notes, never drafted, never debated, and fundamentally never intended to exist. By December 1955, the Southern delegation had seen enough. The archival trail documents a series of walkouts and formal protests that Khartoum dismissed as localized agitation. They were reading a political map. The South was reading a war map. The ultimatums were clear. Either federal autonomy or total separation. The response from the North was an uncompromising no. The administrative divide was now sealed with forensic finality. As the political collapse in Khartoum reached its peak, a new phenomenon was emerging in the geography of the South. From the hub of Juba to the barracks of Tirit, the survivors were no longer just refugees, they were becoming a movement. In the deep bush of Equatoria, the first Anyanya cells were forming. These weren't professional armies, but fragmented groups of former Equatoria Corps soldiers and native resistance fighters bound by a shared sense of betrayal. The first recorded skirmishes occurred in early 1956. These were small tactical strikes against government outposts. To Khartoum, they were minor incidents. To the forensic historian, they were the opening chords of a 17-year war. Look at the markers. Torit, Capoeira, Juba. These weren't random acts of violence. They were targeted responses to administrative neglect. The South was reclaiming its soil, one skirmish at a time. The archival reports from the period document a rising casualty count. Small numbers at first, but with a forensic consistency that suggested a permanent shift in the state of the Union. Unity was now a lethal fiction. The flag of 1956, blue, yellow, and green, preached geographic unity to the world. It was a horizontal tricolour designed to represent the Nile, the desert, and the fertile South in perfect balance. By the time independence was officially declared on January 1st, 1956, the map was a forensic lie. Khartoum governed a state that existed only on paper, while the ground in the South was held by the memory of Torit and the hope of Anyanya. The betrayal wasn't just in the failure to provide safeguards, it was in the refusal to recognize the South as a political equal. The Jiang, Nath, and Shilluk were treated as problems to be managed, not citizens to be served. The British departure left a forensic void. The administrative machinery was handed over to a northern elite that had no understanding of southern culture or history. The divide wasn't just political, it was professional. Anyanya, the word, means poison. It was a name chosen for its clinical finality. The southern resistance saw themselves as the lethal cure for a state that had become a parasite on their future. By mid-1956, the Torit Mutiny had evolved into a regional insurgency. Bahr el Ghazal and Upper Nile were no longer safe for the central government. The factory of division was operating at full capacity. Our forensic reconstruction of this period reveals a state that failed because it refused to admit it was broken. The early tensions weren't just signs of trouble, they were the structural failure points of an impossible architecture. As we close the case file on early 1956, one forensic fact is undeniable. The unity of Sudan was dead before the Republic was born. The divide was no longer a policy, it was a destiny. The Anyanya movement would definition a generation of Nilotic resistance. It was a movement born of betrayal, sustained by geography, and motivated by the simple right to exist in one's own land. History is not a story of what happened, it is a forensic report of why it happened. Thank you for joining me in the archive. I am Mr. Yol, your armchair historian. Stay curious and stay critical. History is not just what happened, it is why it happened. Join us next time for our Series 2 finale, Episode 5, The North-South Divide, as we examine the formalization of the Anyanya and the final forensic proof of a nation split by destiny. The truth is always in the archive.